other things, obviously, depending on what happens with next year's budget as we're dealing with 2010. And then the number we've had in there for the last few years is trying to, reserve, hopefully at a larger number for the inmate revenue, to be able to reserve that. So we try to put that away for that purpose. And then the new item in there, as we discussed last month, and I have just some information as FYI information, are the legal fees. I understand that County Board continue on the landfill legal fees and discussion of whether, I know we've had things split between planning and then state's attorney, and then if we're going to move to capital development. The very last page on that is just to try to explain the progression, if you will, of legal fees. And this is a copy of the planning 2007, which shows $186,000, in professional fees, of which $143,000 were actually utilized. And if we take that as far as for the landfill stuff, and I don't believe all of it was for landfill, but if we progress it down, we move $30,000 to the state's attorney budget for this fiscal year of 08, and if we move $75,000 to capital development for 09, there's still a balance within planning. And so I was asked what the history was, which is on the right-hand column, and then I was asked how did the number come about for the planning change, and that's at the bottom. So taking $75,000 out, moving it to capital development, as you see, and then recalculating their 4% after that was out, is where the total of the $98,000 came from. So it's up to the committee, it's up to the board how they want to cover that. We're just identifying, dollar amounts that had been earmarked for legal fees, and if they're still going to be earmarked for legal fees or not. That's where, as far as dealing with, Chairman Cruz and stuff over the last number of years with this and funding it and who was going to pay for it and all those things that it brought about, and we're still, I think we're getting toward the end of it, but yet it's still not over, and just summary, just to send it all to a neutral department, so to speak, hopefully, either state's attorney, planning, whoever's communicating, to be able to double check those, before the claims, are submitted and we charge them to capital development, if that's what the committee wants, or we go back to what we were doing. I just wanted to explain that because that is, I've had a number of questions on that. This is how the progression is where I came from with the numbers.
So to understand this better, Steve, planning or legal wants those bills, right?
Well, right now, state's attorney paid the $30,000 and then stopped at $30,000 with that budget, and that's where the questions come up. Is who wants it? I know planning has wanted them out of the budget for a number of time. That's the toughest part as far as, I just need the direction what I'm supposed to do with them, what I mean? And my only request, if we send it to capital development, I guess, is that somebody's checking on it, checking them, that's involved in it, is my only request, because I'm not involved in it, although, we can certainly send them wherever the board wants to send them, and take care of them, but I'm kind of in the middle of, but I'm trying to fund it, and trying to put it where it needs to be. But I don't know what goes on in that arena as far as.
Mr. Boyd, your input.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, just a couple of things for the committee to keep in mind. The $30,000 that was placed in my budget for professional services legal fees, we knew it was going to be placed there. What we anticipated to use it for was outside counsel. As for the landfill bills, I don't want to get caught up in what are we paying for here, but I want the committee to understand that the two largest outside legal fees that my office currently has are the landfill litigation and arbitration and final negotiation of union contracts. We've had to hire outside counsel for various reasons, and we are likely going to have to do so in the future. So those are the types of expenses that are included in there. Whether they go on my budget, I don't really care. Put them in my budget, put them in somebody else's. I consider that an expense basically of running the county. My office, sort of oversees it because it's outside counsel, but we don't make the call on the final decision. That's why we hire outside counsel. So whether you want to consider it my expense planning, I don't know why there's an issue as to whose line item it goes to. Everybody knows what those outside expenses are, so however you want to handle it's fine with me, as long as it doesn't eat into the rest of my budget. That's 4% that I'm going to have. I don't really care what you do with it.
Well, I think the issue is that if you examine and okay the bills and then we pay them out of capital development.
I would say this, I don't know, it doesn't matter which project it goes to, there's not a legal bill that gets sent to the auditor or the finance department that has not been personally reviewed by me and generally reviewed by other members of my civil department. I will guarantee that to this. Those bills come directly to my desk, I review them. When necessary, when appropriate, I will call the outside counsel and say, why did you charge me 2.5 hours for this, or even 0.3 hours for this phone call? I do watch them. I watch them. I don't care what you pay it out of, but wherever it goes, I'm more than happy to continue in the process of actually overseeing every single legal bill that comes in from outside.
That answers one of the questions in the committee's mind. Thank you.
All right, well, that ends as far as the numbers are concerned. The other information that you have here, and I think you probably want to wait maybe to obviously take a look at it. One of the documents, it starts off Office of the Public Defender with his request. I can tell you with Ed is the number that he's requesting to stay the same includes a grant that is going away, so that we have another issue of a grant going away and funding, having to pick up local funding, so that and then we have the courts. The chief judge asked, as he did last year, to net out the 4%, but do it a little differently than how it came in as far as courts, jury, DNDC. I believe he netted more out of DNDC and adjusted courts and jury, but overall it's the same amount that originally was sent to him. So I did not change that yet in the numbers, but last year you said okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was okay or not before I did an adjustment there. It's basically the same total amount, just allocated, adjusted differently, and then there is the other information and what an explanation of their request, and obviously those that are here to talk. Last night I received highways. That's the very last. I have not had a chance to go over this. It came at about 5:30 or so. But obviously I want to get a copy to you so you could take that with you and analyze it before next month. And then the only other document that I want to just relook at, just for information purposes, is where the Kankakee County Special Funds Ending Fund Balance Analysis is the top page of that packet, and then go back to the health insurance information which would have been the last page of the first document. These are just what ifs, some of the different analysis that I've done. I know it's tough. It's tough for me as a department head with these cuts. I know it's tough for everybody. Back in May, if we can go back to the health insurance one, if you can kind of look at both of these together, because I kind of did it more to sequence. We did a what if we changed some of the benefits around with health insurance. I had one of my interns work on this as a project. And he did a nice job on it. And basically, to refresh your memory, what we talked about in May was if we took the coverage, we have 75-25% split for the employee. That's split between whether it's the employee single or employee all the way to employee family. A lot of governments do just the employee, and if the employee chooses a spouse or children or family, then the employee picks that up. And what we did, without changing any other benefits as far as co-pays or anything else, just did an analysis of a what if in line with if we just covered the employees 75-25 and then their voluntary thing. If it all stayed the same, The change in the savings as far as the county is concerned would be $362,000. I know that information is going to be discussed at a subcommittee for insurance and health insurance and the like, and I'm not saying that this is feasible, or I'm not trying to talk you into it. This is more of a hypothetical what if, and then we keep that number in mind, and then I did an analysis on all the special funds that we have, and basically what they total. And as you can see, we have a significant amount in the special fund category, and they continue to grow by a significant amount. Hypothetically, if we were to use just the growth of these special funds and change in benefits, that almost about equals the dollar amount that we look for with the 4%. About $750,000 is what we attempted to adjust in trying to rebalance the budget, was $750,000. So again, hypothetically, I know that there's things identified with the special funds and whether we can or we can't on certain things, but there are funds, there are other areas as well. It's obviously going to take a lot of work, but I just there are funds out there that can help, and/or we could adjust. So and the health insurance changes to health insurance because of its size makes a huge difference. And I know if we're getting into body counts and stuff, is it better to change benefits or how many people? That's a tough decision, but we're getting down to it with budget cuts. It's not an easy decision, no matter which way you look at it. So this was meant to be a what if. All the pages connected to these are just for for your information. It's reported to you. We have them in there with the budgets. It will be included. We had them all in there last month for you. I included the ones that are on this form. I included what the various department heads are using. And obviously, if possible, if they could continue to use more, it would obviously help take a load off the general fund. But there's statutory things with those, but it's just a hypothetical. What if we we're able to do this or do that, and the dollar amounts that we're talking about, are significant. So it's just, again, a what if, just some information. I don't know if I've ever brought the special funds to you in that way. I know that we report them, to you with fund balances and the like, as statutorily required, but there's significant dollar amounts there, and there's significant increases still happening there. If we can hope, potentially tap, those where we haven't tapped before, potentially, or are not currently tapping, if possible. So those are just two what ifs, but the significant, dollars that, that could potentially also do the same thing that we're doing right now, with the cuts. So.
Any questions for Steve? Mr. Bosser.
As far as the special funds, I know one of the pending issues as far as the use of those funds is the integrated software system. What are potentially we're looking at in terms of a cost there? I've lost track of that discussion.
Honestly, I don't know. I have no idea.
I think Mr. Boyd.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Boss, if you're referring to the Integrated Criminal Justice Information System, which I believe you are, we are currently in negotiations with the company who has been, or likely will be awarded the bid. They're actually the ones we've chosen to deal with through, again, outside counsel, which is being paid out of part of that fund. I anticipate that the final cost for that is going to be somewhere between $1.7 and $2.4 million, all of which will come out of the special funds earmarked for computerization of the circuit clerk's office and the criminal justice system in general. I guess everybody's aware of what it is, so I won't explain it, but that's the numbers.
Any other questions for Steve? Comments? Thank you, Steve. Steve's had a tough month.
He's going to get a little easier.
It's not going to get any easier for any of us, believe me. County Treasurer's Office. Yeah, Mr. Frischette. As always, the reports are in your packet. The reports are in your packet. I need motions to approve those. The county treasurer's report. Motion by Mr. Legess, second by Mr. Lear. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like saying. Motion carries. County collector's report. It's in your packet. Motion by Mr. Stauffenberg, second by Mr. Washington. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the monthly resolutions are also there. And I'll need a motion of Mr. Washington, Mr. Legess with a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like saying. Motion carries. Thank you. Mark will spend a minute here with his report. We'll move on.
You got her.
Oh, I see.
His one vote isn't enough, Mark.
I think there's more votes here. Get in on that too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving to number 9. Mr. Frechette has made a pass out here.
Yeah. I apologize, I got a sinus infection, so I'm not feeling too well. I'll do this pretty quick. My salary is set by county board. My office personnel, as everyone else that has their union contracts. My part-time help is the bare minimum there. And then everything else is the fixed cost. The postage I can't control. I get half of that back at my tax sale. So the amount that is funded for me will be $266,972. Earlier, Steve alluded to special funds. Each year, I give $10,000 out of my computer fund to help offset Steve Beatty's budget to help with the cost of DevNet. That's something I do not have to do. Just want to let this committee know that I can take that $10,000 and use it for my budget. I also have another fund, special fund. It's an interest fund. This year, there's a statute that allows me that after it gets over a certain amount, I can transfer all the money into the general fund. I will be doing that before the end of fiscal year, and it amounts to about $25,000. And then every year hereafter, it'll be about $10,000 a year. So as far as special funds go, I mean, you can talk to Kevin Duvall about my computer fund and how I spend that. I've used my special funds to the best of my ability to spend them to help out the general fund. So what this amounts to, my number that was given to me was $245,752. That's $21,000 that I need more than that number. That is a union individual that I would have to lay off. That would be 25% of my staff. And that's really all I have to say at this point. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Mark? Thank you, sir. Mr. Gessner, you're next. Morning, Bob. Not a morning to you. Not a long morning.
I'd just like to talk a little bit about my budget in 2000. I know you heard a lot today, and when you drop, my question was, is when you drop 4%, you're dropping from all other departments, but for my department there, it's going to run very, very difficult. It's similar like the other departments. And first of all, in 2007, I budgeted for 340 and came down to 326. Lost an employee. Was up on autopsies. And as this year right now, we're way up on autopsies, which I talk about to our criminal justice and to finance. Bringing me down to 313 is what you proposed me to. Is just I'm I've been through numbers and done whatever I can. I just, you know, the only way I can cut is I have to cut into my autopsies. We're projected, kind of bad, yeah. Let me rephrase that again. It's,
Thank you for lightening up the meeting.
yeah. I'm sure that the state's attorney and police departments, the area police departments we work so well, is not liking to see to cut some of the, or to drop some of the autopsies that we do. Helps us quite considerable in helping solving cases. Our forensic pathologist is board certified. He's increasing his salary. He has good credibility with the law enforcement, good credibility with the state's attorney's office. If you lose somebody like that, jeopardizes a lot of things in the court. But what you've never really looked at is when I left out of 189 to go to the new building, I not only got an office building out there to provide with the families that come to our office every day. I do have another building out there called the morgue. I have never been adjusted for that building. I'm coming out of my salary, which I have 2 buildings. The morgue expense has gone up. The law has changed, where when I transport a body, I have to be with it. Not only do we have a secure building, which that we go to, I have to transport with that body from the scene to the morgue, so I can get the people in there. It wasn't like we used to have when we went to St. Mary's and just drop the body off. You have to follow your evidence. This is a big factor. I've cut last night. I put myself back on more call time. I go to all the 1050s, all the suicides, all the homicides. I work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so my staff, but when you cut, and I try to go back and cut myself to go back a little bit more on shifts wise and maybe not have to do the programs out in the schools, I still got to call somebody in when I transport, which I've never been adjusted for. When you cut me down to 313, I would like to sit down with Steve or the finance department and ask, again, that I've asked all through the year, do you really understand what the coroner does, his office? Not too many people have been out to see my office and how it runs. I only had 1 person to come to an autopsy. These are very important points. Your TV has just destroyed us as far as everything that has to be CSI, everything has to be done fast. Our cold cases are up. Our embalming of bodies I've done more than I've ever had in the 25 years I've been here. We've got 4 on prospect right now of doing. I've been to a lot of depositions, more into court cases, more than I've ever had. So this is what's coming up, and to drop my budget, I'm just speaking as the coroner here, is going to be really, really difficult. And just remind yourself that Chapter 55 states that all autopsies will be covered by the county board. So it's in the statutes of the coroner. So I don't want to cut, I use that word again. I don't want to drop a lot of the autopsy because our office is professional. I've upgraded that office to be professional. And that's what the way the world is changing. I say it's the S word. There's a lot of people being sued. A lot of things you have to do that I just don't understand, that you really don't understand what the coroner does. It's not just there to pronounce somebody dead and leave. Death certificates have changed. Our office has gone out overboard because of the reaction down to the state of Illinois not doing their job with the new death certificates. We went out and got our own program and made the death certificates to go along with the state. They're identical. It costs us $70 to get into the program. My secretary designed it. It's identical, and things are done a lot quicker. Families get upset when you don't get things out right away. We've cut that down quite a bit. But if I cut my budget, it's gonna take a little longer. The inquest, how many know that I don't do inquest anymore? It's done by the coroner for the power in 2007. The shall has been taken out, the may has been put in, that I may have an inquest, or I may go ahead and go with that case. Talking with the state's attorney, any detective, the police, the family. I talk to everybody before I make that decision. And these are things that I want you to really understand about the coroner's office. And I'm be more than happy to sit down with anybody at any time. And just announce, I've been up since midnight, I'm working on a case on a suicide. We were doing an autopsy at 9 o'clock in the morning. I welcome anybody to come to see what we do as the coroner and my staff. I thank you for letting me stand up in front of you, and I'd be more than happy to sit down with anybody.
Any questions for Bob Gessner? Thanks, Bob. Thank you. Anybody else? Any department head? Mr. Boyd?
Somebody find Nicholas and tell him to get this stuff fixed, would you?
Did you cut that, Bob?
I cut it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I will keep this short. I'm not here to discuss how I'm going to manage a 4% cut in my budget. I'm going to manage whatever it is you tell me to do. You guys make the rules, I'll manage it. If I got to fire however many people, lay off however many people, I'm sure the public service will suffer, but eventually the public will get used to reduced services. What I want to talk to you about is I am not, like Mr. Gessner or the sheriff or the circuit clerk or Mr. Frechette, I'm not a revenue generator. Yes, I have certain areas where I get some money, and generally those come from grants which help offset the cost of my office, and some forfeiture money. Unfortunately, everything I get comes with such restrictions from the Attorney General or the state of Illinois or the federal government or just the legislature as to what I can use it for. I can't offer you the use of one of those special funds. I've looked at grant versus non-grant terminations and the overall savings. And I'll be honest with you. Some of the grant positions actually look like it may be better for the county if I cut a grant position, because it only reduces my budget significantly, but it also reduces the county's budget somewhat with regard to benefits and other things that you're paying because of the grant. I don't know where I'm going to go, and I guess that's not important. I would suggest to this committee and then to the county board that we are continuing to look at the budget process the same as we have for the past several years. And given our current situation where we're being told we need to cut, I think it's time to relook at the way you check the budget. If 4% across the board is the way you want to prioritize the services provided to the county residents, I understand and I'm okay with it. However, even if that's your decision, I think this committee, it's incumbent upon this committee and incumbent upon the board to look at, in some fashion, the centralization of your expenses. Whether it be something as simple as cell phones, whether it be outside agreements with some of your utility companies. I know we've gone to the Staples program and that was very beneficial, but I find that while we all have our bottom line budgets and it's a nice way to do business, there are certain things that I think if the county would, the administration, the board, this committee would take a look, you might find that there's a general savings across the board, and then again you may not. And perhaps you've looked into this, and if you have, I apologize for taking up your time with that. I'm not here to complain about my budget. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. That's my job. But it's bothersome to hear department heads feeling the need to justify everything in their budget, and then it appears to me, almost as an outsider, that we're fighting amongst ourselves, and I don't think that's the case. There are any number of reasons that we're in the budget situation we're in, and I would just ask this committee, and eventually the county board, to take a look at real priorities, and to take a look at what can and cannot be centralized. And when I say centralized, I mean if you were to get into a county-wide agreement on cell phones, be it with Nextel, because that's what the Sheriff's Department uses, and I don't know what Mr. Gessner uses, or Verizon, which is what my office uses because they have the federal contract, so I save money on it. I don't know. But perhaps that's a way to reduce the overall budget and ease some of the burden on some of the other departments. So that's what I have to say, and I apologize. I'll put $2.30 out of my budget for Super Bowl. I'll also say how to fix this. Yeah, are there any questions? If not, thank you very much for your time.
The development operation.
Any other department head? Yep. Got two of them. Okay, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the committee. I would agree with the state's attorney that we're not here to fight. I think we all recognize the position you have, and that is to have us operate with limited funds, and you take those funds and you allocate them to the best of your ability. And then we as elected officials or department heads have to make that work. I just have some questions because I'm kind of getting a mixed message. That we're told first with the inmate rental program, you know, is an initiative that we started 4 years ago. And what gets lost in the picture, I think, is that if we hadn't started that program, you as a board still would have had to have paid for the inmates from the county. And you would have paid an average of $4.5 million a year for each of the last 5 years with no reimbursement. Nothing would have come in. Our target was 350 inmates a day to generate $7.7 million. I don't know how much of that money the committee put aside as surplus money or excess revenue to go into the savings fund. But my question is today, we don't have 350 inmates in the jail. We have 390. There are 667 inmates in the jail today. There's a capacity of 668. I got one bed. So my staff is killing themselves. And now they're being told there's no, to what benefit is it? It costs us extra money to feed them and do all the other things we got to do, but I don't get money back for that. And that's the point I'm making, that you're sending a mixed message to us about what we should do. I mean, I can very easily tell you, fine, we just won't go out and knock down on doors to get inmates brought in here. But our department has gone out of its way to exceed the capacity. We're going to bring in, instead of 7.7, we're probably going to bring in 8 million just on bed rentals. We're going to bring in another $250,000 on reimbursements for transporting these individuals. We'll bring in $250,000 on telephone revenues. There has to be some way of looking from the right side to the left side and saying what's fair. What can go over there that it causes an expense that's being reimbursed over here? Because the alternative is to lay off. And if I lay off, you're not going to have the rentals, that money that you desperately count on. And you're backing me into a hole. So you're then, if you say, well, then don't cut anybody sheriff from corrections, just cut the guys on patrol. Yeah, I'm getting requests from the chief judge and for probation to add staff down there. You're the ones that told me to keep patrolling with the extra people from the grant that vanished. I can't do that. It ultimately comes down to the fact that I'm the sheriff, elected by the people to provide what I have to do. And I'll have to make some decisions that are going to have a significant impact on what you count on for revenue. That's why I'm saying we have to work together. And I know you've got it written in stone that you can't transfer any money from the inmate revenue program. I'm the one who first demanded that. But I think you have to look at it beyond that and not be so irresolute to say, listen, we can't be flexible and take some of the revenue we didn't anticipate because we brought in so many more extra inmates. If you're saying that's sacrosanct and you can't ever touch that money, what is the motivation for me to go out and get any more than 350 inmates? It's crazy for me to do it. It just brings on extra expense. You get the revenue, and I'm the one that has to make a decision who to cut, who to lay off. Who's going to take the heat in the media? We're going to take the heat. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years, and I can tell you that as the economy sags as it is now, crime will go up. It's just a matter of fact. So you can anticipate that coming. I don't want to go back to the days where Bill Scroggins told people whose houses were burglarized, all we'll do is take a phone report. Just call it in. Our guys will take it over the phone. We're not going to come out and investigate it. That's what we did here back in the 1980s. I don't want to do that again. So we need to work together. We're not at opposite ends. At least that's not the way I look at it. I think we need to sit down and have a discourse that does address your needs and the needs of my department. And like the state's attorney, I will do everything in my power to live within my budget. All I'm asking for is some fairness, to look at the other side and make your decisions. Thank you.
Any questions for the sheriff? Thank you, Sheriff, and Mike?
I'll be very brief. Also, Michelle's going to give you a chart of the planning department budget over the course of the last 2 years, from 2007 to today, to give you a breakdown of how our budget has evolved over time. If you take a look at it in 07, we did max out at our largest budget at $995, and as you can see in 2008, last year, we significantly reduced the general fund obligation with the planning budget for two reasons. One is the incorporation of the alliance budget, and as well as the $75,000 that went into the contingency line item, as well as funds that we that went to state's attorney for reasons that for legal reasons. In our FY 2009 budget, you'll see that the initial proposal that came to our office was $602,722, which, based on my computations, suggests an 8.6% decrease in our general fund budget. And for 2008, we went back and we sharpened our pencils in our office. We could provide the same service without decreasing it. If we took the 701,446 line item that our general fund is at this year, reduce that by 4%, and have it if we came up with a proposed budget of 2009 at 673. So that's what we're requesting. We can live within our means at the 4% decrease, but the additional funds, which is the difference between 673 and 602, would substantially cut into to what we're doing. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions for Mike? All righty. Any other department head? Wants to vent at us? Any old business to come before the committee? Any old business to come before the committee? Under new business, I would like to address the generator situation at the courthouse. And I watched the video, thanks to our kind friends here. on the criminal justice meeting, and there was a lot of concern there. There was a lot of concern in planning and zoning. On the research that Steve's done, what might be a good move, and maybe the committee, we need some action from the committee, that on funding a generator project, which could run, I think one estimate was 200,000, we could take that out of some of the special funds. Mr. Boyd has agreed to check and make sure that that's doable in planning and zoning the other day, and so if we could get Mr. McCarty's input, Mr. Boyd's input, and get the department heads who are in charge of the special funds that are applicable, I think we can move forward on that generator, which is an important thing for loss of service, loss of 911, loss of a lot of things. Mr. Boston.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what you just commented on the extended discussion the other day at the Operations Development Committee about that topic. Yes, there's an array of issues when the courthouse closes down in the way of the criminal justice system grinds to a halt. There's critical things that need to be done. 911, electronics that are in the courthouse go blind. We don't have any. We are told that the hub of the 911 system is in the courthouse. So, yes, there's issues there, and we need to probably move ahead on that. We discussed thoroughly 4 years ago, and then kind of got dropped in favor of some other projects. Yeah, I'd be in favor of having that issue researched as to whether we can use some of these special funds in the way of court security or even the automation fund. Might be able to participate a bit in it.
Any other comments or from the committee as far as that? We'll move forward on that, and especially with our new integrated computer system. Mr. Duval has indicated that we need to keep that up and running because the whole justice system will be revolving around that. And so if we lost a loss of power there, why, it will be quite a drastic situation for our criminal justice departments. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to agree with Mike here. This is something that it's a disgrace to the county that has drug on this long. And I would advocate that this be put on the fast track to get a generator ordered, something of that nature with respect to the courthouse as soon as possible.
I see Mr. Hart's here, and he can move forward in development operations, and I think it's a funding issue more than it is anything else. Where do we get the money? General fund can't support it, but we have special funds, and let's move forward on the special fund. Mr. McCarty.
Do we have numbers yet as far as how much, or is that being worked on?
I think Bob Hart is working on the numbers now. I think one of the big things is getting natural gas to it. I think we've all agreed in development operations, we agreed that 1,000-gallon fuel tank is not a very practical thing there, so I think getting the natural gas line there is a key component, and I think moving forward on the generator, its placement, and the size for any future expansion is an important issue. So I think Mr. Hart will move forward on the numbers, get them to Mr. McCarty, talk to Mr. Boyd, and other department heads. We would ask that the criminal justice participants move forward and explore their special funds so that we can fund this project. Is there any other new business to come before the committee? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Clark.
Well, I guess I would ask, how are we proceeding here in terms of our budget discussion? Clock is running. Timeline is such, we have to adopt the final budget by, what, the end of November? And
I think our time frame is spelled out. I left mine at home today, but we have a time frame in our budget process. Steve, where are we at?
Normally you do, the final is done out of this committee in September at the September meeting, and then goes on to the full November board. Although if it does go past, there's a 15-day statutory window that it has to be on public display before it's the final vote. So depending on, further discussion, it can go into October and still hit the November full board. But so that's, those are the potential timeframes there.
If I can continue, Mr. Washington spoke in support of the notion that we should have some discussion, probably individually, with department heads in some manner. I would support that. And we've also been challenged that as a board, we haven't talked through priorities, and I think that's points well taken. We have accepted priorities that have been set in the past, and have, as time went on, new programs, new personnel have been added as we go along, and now that we need to retrace our steps a little bit, it's getting painful, and there's no doubt about that. So we need to talk about some priorities here and make a positive statement as a board that we feel this or that are important. So we need to have that discussion at some point here, and if it takes some extra meetings, maybe we need to discuss that.
Mr. Lear.
When the discussion was mentioned in terms of special funds, I thought I heard there were some legal questions in terms of whether we would be able to withdraw money from those special funds. Who will be investigating that? Is that an attorney?
Mr. Boyd's office will give us some guidelines here as to special funds.
So we should be able to have that information by the September meeting?
And I think one of the key things, and we've kind of explored but not thoroughly explored, this health insurance thing. And Steve put it on put some of it in front of you today, and I don't know what the committee feels, but if we want to move forward, feel free to call Mr. Cruz or myself. We'll set up a special meeting on insurance only and explore that.
Mr. Chairman, in regard to that, are we limited by any union contracts in terms of being able to make any of these changes as far as health insurance?
Yes. I guess we are.
We are.
No question about it.
So, however, I think it's in a general sense from what I've read. It's in a general sense, but I don't want to practice law here. Mr. Boyd will practice for us, so he will supply those answers. So I think that it's in a general sense, so that this contribution the county makes. But that's my understanding, and I want someone else's opinion qualified. Any other comments from the committee? Any other suggestions from the committee as to how we move forward here? Hearing none, we'll move to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Legess with a motion, Mr. Washington with a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.